Hi, Tara here, and in today's segment, we are going to talk about what triggers binge eating. There are several different things that actually trigger the idea that one needs to eat, and that's, first of all, having a ravenous appetite. You have to look at how often are you eating throughout your day? What types of foods are you wanting to eat? Are you actually getting enough well-balanced calories and nutrition in your diet? Because if not, that will make you feel hungrier. And especially if you're in a place where you have more readily access available to various different types of food, whether in your pantry or your refrigerator, that you can just go and grab. Oftentimes we eat more when we're watching a movie, for example, or we're just relaxing, we're sitting around, or maybe we're home alone, we're bored, we're lonely, right? So the food seems like the next logical sequence we should go ahead and eat. And the other thing that can happen too is responding to some sort of trauma. Did you just have an argument with someone? Did something traumatic just happen to you? Was there something that made you feel more emotional that day, that you're hiding feelings sometimes of guilt and shame? Again, feelings sometimes are used when we want to punish ourselves, when something really negative was spoken over us, or we have negative self-image, poor self-esteem, and so we naturally turn to food as a means of comfort. Sometimes when you can't control other areas of life and you feel as though you have a loss of control over your situation or over your dynamic or just over your life in general, it can be a natural response to want to eat food, because food is the one thing that you sometimes are in control of. When other people are trying to control you, or maybe you're in an environment that's toxic, it's not healthy for you, right? And so something that brings you comfort is food. And so these things can be a natural response to traumatic situations, or I hate to bring up the cliche topic, but fat shaming. Sometimes a person will eat because of the fact that something traumatic happened to them, and let's say that they were raped, or maybe something happened in their family where they were beat up, or maybe somebody they didn't know beat them up, or I could go over the situations over and over again. We could go on and on about different situations that happen that cause an individual to want to hide their body. So they actually continue to eat and eat and eat and eat so that they can actually hide their body, so they're not attractive to their predator, to the person that was abusing them, whether that was mentally, physically, or emotionally, because that can cause a person to eat as well. So knowing and identifying what your triggers are, if there's a situation or a place that reminds you of the situation that happened to you, maybe staying away from those places if at all possible, and if not, really being key and in tune with listening to your body will really help you. If you can't remove yourself from the environment, or you're going to be in an environment that reminds you of that person or that situation, really putting yourself in a place where you can physically and emotionally and mentally prepare your body ahead of time will be good. Looking at coping mechanisms that, help you to cope. A matter of taking deep breaths might be helpful, or, maybe even taking a brisk walk, or going to the bathroom and taking some deep breaths that way, and then coming back out into the atmosphere. Or, maybe if you have a therapist that you meet once a week, or, twice a week, or even once a month, or hiring a coach that can help you develop a strategy and continue to hold you accountable to that would be another means. And also just if it's a person and they are reminding you of just being in a toxic environment, or they're toxic to you, they distract you from your goals, from your purpose, they make you feel horrible about yourself, learning how to set boundaries with that person will absolutely be key for you. And maybe disconnecting them from your life, or really limiting the contact that you have if you, absolutely as a last resort need to remove that person from your life, it is okay to give yourself permission to do so. In fact, I want you to give yourself permission to do so, because you should not have to feel like you have to be that person for that person, okay? Once somebody starts emotionally, mentally, or physically abusing someone, chances are they're not going to stop. They've done it to others. So the best thing you can do is remove yourself. If you have to get local authorities involved, do so. Do whatever it takes to remove yourself from that environment and keep yourself safe. And, if you need to see a physician in order to get a referral or prescription of some sort, it is not a bad thing to do. There are times that, certain medications and things can help in terms of anxiety or depressive symptoms. Also, doing activities that you love and enjoy will help, especially if you're somebody like me who wants a more holistic approach. Learning a new skill or doing something that you love, appreciating and loving on yourself. And if you do binge, again, don't hold it against yourself, give yourself grace, but maybe instead of speaking words that are punishing over yourself, actually speaking words of life and encouragement over yourself will also be super helpful as you continue to recover. It's not going to be an overnight process. The idea that you've binged for a long time off and on, and it's more of a cyclic behavior, meaning it has cycles to it. You could binge one night and eat everything in sight in under 2 hours and then not have another binge again for a couple of months. Continuing to repeat it, really you need to take a look at that. And if it's something that continues, seek the necessary tools and help to be able to do that. But you can do things yourself to minimize the urge to actually binge. And so having healthy outlets, if you have wise counsel or, good friend support to talk to, that can be helpful to you. You don't necessarily need the person to solve all your problems for you, but if they can be a sounding board and just say, hey, I don't need for you to fix this, but what I really need is for you to listen to me. I need for you just to hear me out so that I can get this off of my chest. Okay, then that way you're not being ruled by your emotions. You're making a physical declaration with your mouth, you're speaking it out. And maybe if you're somebody that journals, or maybe you haven't journaled before, I actually encourage journaling, writing it out, writing what are your subconscious thoughts? Meaning, if you were to grab a pen and a paper right now and start writing, what actually would come out on that paper? And that's something also that you need to take a look at as well, because that can also be a helpful tool. So rather than going to food to eat, you're actually writing your thoughts out. And then slowly over time, you're learning, okay, now that I got my thoughts out, what is it that I really want to do with those thoughts? So you're being more intentional and mindful about where your thoughts are going, where you're going with that. And that can make all the difference in the world. It may not 100% stop a binge from happening, but it's going to make you think twice before actually going to the refrigerator or the cupboard to actually get some food. And actually talking yourself through, I know another tip that I found helpful as I overcame bulimia was, I was an exercise bulimic for many years. Something that really helped me initially in my process was just sitting back and asking myself, okay, why is it that I want this snack at 8 o'clock at night? I'm already full. I've hydrated. I've had, all the rest that I need. I'm not stressed out, but I'm not even hungry, but I have this desire and this urge to eat this food item. Okay. And sometimes I would just sit there with it. I wouldn't walk over and get the food, but I would just sit there with that feeling. So because my past behavior was to stuff my feelings with the food that I ate. So I needed to find a way to replace that, right? So this is a really good example. So instead of going and eating the food, I would sit back with it and actually say, okay, what feeling am I feeling and why? And then, when that, I would sit there and think about, was there a past event? Was there a traumatic situation? And 9 times out of 10, there was some sort of past trauma that my body, both mentally and physically, because your body and your mind, it'll tell you what it needs every time, right? So it was just a matter of me going back through and dealing with that actual trauma. whether I needed to write that down, whether I needed to pray about healing for that trauma, or whether I needed to go and tell a counselor or, call a trusted friend and just allow them to help me work through that. And sometimes it was just a matter of loving and choosing to forgive myself, because love is a choice. And sometimes we just need to be kind and gentle to our body. When we responded to trauma, we were so critical and judgmental of our bodies, but we didn't know how to love ourselves or love our bodies enough not to do the binge. So if we felt unloved, or we felt unwanted, or we felt unworthy, or we felt limited in our mindset and our belief system, the best thing that we could do to help curtail those dark, negative feelings is to replace that with feelings of gratitude and love and kindness. And a couple things that I would recommend as exercises would be to look in front of your mirror, and instead of saying mean, nasty things to yourself, write down or maybe think of 5 to 10 nice things that you could say about yourself in the here and now. Even if you come up with only 2 to 3 things, that's okay. But start speaking them over yourself daily. Start making declarations and affirming yourself. That's a part of self-love and self-appreciation and self-care. Because when you start appreciating and loving yourself, you won't any longer go by your feelings, because you will realize the worth, the weight, and the value that you actually have and bring to the table. You have to remember that your feelings are not really who you are. Feelings are a response to a trigger and past trauma that you faced. And even though I'm no counselor or expert, this is something that I experienced in my personal journey that I'm now sharing with you that really helped me to overcome and realize, which is why I am sharing them with you. And, when you start to feel that urge, removing yourself would be a good idea. Removing the foods, but also removing yourself from that, from that place, whether that's the refrigerator or the pantry, and instead maybe going for a walk or grabbing a book, or meeting up with a friend. And if you still feel like you can't get a handle on it, and let's say that you still feel like you're being ruled by your emotions, maybe seeking some sort of professional help, whether that's from a coach that can hold you accountable, which I can help you with. And if you want to look into those options, please let me know, get in contact with me, and I can also help you with that. Seeking your primary care physician. Sometimes they are leaning towards more Western medicine, so if you want to handle it more holistically, there are different things with essential oils, like you can get raindrops treatments. There are different essential oils that you can apply topically. You can diffuse them in the air. They can be great stress relief to you. Another thing that you can do is actually going and getting chiropractic care, or if you're dealing with physical pain, getting a referral for physical therapy. If you feel that something is still chemically or physically off with your body, definitely contact your primary care physician, and they can guide you as to which direction to go with that. Another thing too that you can do is to guard your mind and your thoughts with what you're receiving, because sometimes when we're overruled with emotions, we're not necessarily thinking rationally or clearly, for that matter. So if we want to replace the negative thoughts and feelings with something more positive, getting into devotionals, or if you're faith-based, reading your Bible, or whatever that looks like for you. Personal development also works as well. Listening to upbeat, positive podcasts, listening to positive music. Now we're in the age of digital social media, so maybe looking for some groups that you could join of how others overcame or are currently overcoming, just so that you know that you're not alone and you have support and someone to talk to. I hope that these tips help you today. Thank you so much for joining.